It was a majestic moment, the USS Edson making her way up the Saginaw River into Bay County.
It was an awesome sight.
But her journey is far from over. Work is underway to turn this proud Navy destroyer into an interactive museum.
You know, the opportunity for Sea Cadets and Sea Scouts and everybody to come and live aboard and work aboard is going to be great.
The effort to restore her, reflective of the blood, sweat, and tears shed by the men who proudly served on her.
Yes, I do have a lot of pride for her. She helped me grow up.
Coming up in the next hour, we'll delve into the rich history of this ship, including an attack in Vietnam. Plus, the dream that took decades, how a small group of sailors and supporters managed to secure a ship slated for the scrapyard, and a glimpse into the future. Can she survive as a floating tribute to the past? This is USS Edson, a living history. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm NBC 25's Bill Harris, and this is the USS Edson, DD 946. And coming up within the next hour, we're going to share some amazing and emotional stories about some of the people who served on her when she was active. And we're also going to take you a tour of every section of this vessel. And as you can look around, there's a lot to see. But first, by the numbers. She's 418 feet long, has 4 1,200-pound boilers, and can travel upwards of 32 knots. That's nearly 37 miles an hour. She was decommissioned in 1988, but in her heyday, she carried 17 officers and 275 crew enlisted. And the USS Edson, by all accounts, is a dream come true for the countless number of supporters and volunteers of the Saginaw Valley Ship Museum. And for many of them, it was a dream 2 decades in the making. NBC 25's Jane Park joining us right now to tell us more about the when and the why all that took place. Jane?
Well, that's right, Bill. It was news many in mid-Michigan waited years to hear. A floating naval ship museum on the Saginaw River was a done deal.
This joyous occasion is something that we've waited a long time for.
May 17th, 2012, a day many members of the Saginaw Valley Ship Museum Committee thought would never come.
This is a major achievement and a very special occasion.
The long-awaited day when the United States Navy officially transferred ownership of the USS Edson to the museum.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir.
With that signing, the USS Edson began yet another historic voyage, one that will eventually take her to this site along the Saginaw River in Bay County's Bangor Township. Launched in January 1958, the Edson and her crew defended our country for 30 years, most notably during the Vietnam War and the Cold War.
Not every ship has a meritorious unit commendation. To have 3, probably very few ships have something of that significance in their history.
And it's that history which the Saginaw Valley Ship Museum intends to share interactively when the Edson is finally moored in Bangor Township and becomes a permanent floating ship museum.
They'll be able to walk on board the ship, to touch it, to really get a feel for what went on and what it means to be in the Navy.
It was a monumental community-wide effort. Taking control of a U.S. naval destroyer is no easy task. Bill?
Well, when word was released that she was finally coming to Bay County, the word spread like wildfire to the countless men who served on her. Several here in Michigan, as a matter of fact, and we caught up with one, Bill Bailey of Flint Township.
I haven't forgotten it at all. Like I say, I've got pictures all over the house.
June 1958, 18-year-old Bill Bailey, along with his cousin, enlist in the U.S. Navy.
I can tell you the time of day almost.
After boot camp and sonar school, Seaman Bailey's first ship assignment, the newly commissioned USS Edson. In one of his first assignments,
they sent me with a piece of paper all over that ship, and I wound up down the electrician shop, and I was looking for a fallopian tube. And they all laughed, and I was, 19, and when I found out, I wanted to kill somebody, you know.
So you never found a fallopian?
Oh, I found out what it was.
Petty Officer Second Class Bailey served on the Edson for 3 years, including Westpac cruises to Hawaii, Guam, Midway, Japan, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. But perhaps the memory that most stands out in his mind is one that will forever be remembered in Edson history, the night of April 29th, 1960.
We had a little bit of excitement. We had these pilots that went down, and we were running plane guard for the Ranger as a carrier. And if I remember right, it was at night, because we couldn't see nothing, and they put a bunch of people out by the guardrails, just eyeballing the ocean, you know. And we finally picked up 3 of them, you know, they had flares and everything.
Bill Bailey's naval career officially ended on July 4th, 1962. Not long after, Bill and his wife Linda moved to the Flint area where they still live. But the memories of his time on the USS Edson has never faded. Now, those memories are about to be rekindled with intense and emotional anticipation as the USS Edson is about to embark on a journey to a new home in Bay County.
I would be glad if it was stayed in New York or in Sheboygan, just the fact that it existed, and avoided all the scrap pile or whatever, you know. But the fact that it's going to Bay City, it's like I told you earlier, it's still unbelievable. I mean, every time I talk to somebody, I say, they can't believe it, and I still can't believe it, you know. And try to explain it to them. It's hard to do because I'll have to understand it myself first.
And when Bill Bailey finally sets foot on this vessel, he says it'll be a day he will never, ever forget. Still to come on this NBC 25 special, the USS Edson, a living history. The Navy gives the Saginaw Naval Ship Museum the USS Edson, but there's a catch. It has to be moved from storage at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard to Bay County. It is no easy undertaking, but a colonel will be called in to help. We'll explain. Also ahead, we meet a man who served on the Edson and take him back on board for the first time since his days in the Navy. You'll hear what it's like from him to set foot on deck when NBC 25 heads to Philadelphia right after the break.
My fondest memories of my time on the Edson are the 2 Great Lakes cruises we made. Most importantly, the 1985 cruise, where I met the lady who would become my wife.
And welcome back, everyone. As we already showed you, the U.S. Navy turned over the Edson to the Saginaw Valley Ship Museum last May. Now, by all accounts, that was the easy part. The difficult task still lay ahead, getting the Edson here to Bay County. She has no power. She had to be towed from Philadelphia. Imagine for a moment that the USS Edson has lifelike qualities, and if she did and was in need of a ride, it would take a taxi cab this size to get her where she wants to go.
I said, wow. But she's a nice old lady.
He's Captain Perry of Dan Ocean Towing, the company contracted to tow the USS Edson to Bay County's Bangor Township. And that was his first impression of the Edson as he slowly navigated his massive tugboat, the Colonel, to the Edson site here at the Philadelphia Shipyard. What is one of the big things that you and your crew have to become acclimated with to encounter something of this size when you're towing her?
Well, it's you got to watch her so she doesn't trip the boat over. You have to be aware of that, and it's 24/7 watches.
But those concerns had to wait until tomorrow. There was work to be done today.
Today we'll be doing putting on lines and supplies, changing out radars, and getting ready for the trip.
Can you put in layman's terms the enormity of this project?
A lot. I've been down here now for 4 weeks. I've had 2 guys, myself and another gentleman, and we hired labor ready. Global has been unbelievable in any assistance they have been able to give us to get this project done. A lot of work in a short amount of time.
And I can really see their passion and what they really want to get done to put the Edson on display here for the city, for the state, and to really make it an experience for both the people that live here and the people that are to come.
Well, as you can see, moving a ship this size takes a considerable amount of planning, skill, and a lot of care. After all, this is more than just a U.S. Navy ship. It is an artifact. And as NBC 25's Brittany Noble shows us right now, it is also an irreplaceable piece of history.
The keel of this ship was laid December 3rd, 1956. Since then, she stood the test of time, sailing seas across the world. The USS Edson is busy being restored, but what seems lifeless now was very much alive in the late 20th century. According to USSEdson.org, it all began in 1956 when the ship's keel was laid by Bath Iron Works in Maine. She got her name after Major General Merritt Red Mike Edson, a World War II commander. His widow, honored to break the traditional bottle of champagne over the ship's bow. In early 1959, the Edson began sailing, first to the Caribbean and through the Panama Canal to reach her original home port of Long Beach, California. On January 5, 1960, she departed for her first deployment to the Western Pacific. During that mission, she participated in Operation Blue Star, a large-scale search and rescue mission involving 70 ships, eventually saving 7 Marines washed away in a rubber raft. For the next 2 decades, under the command of Thomas Morty, she served as a valuable member of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, earning a reputation as a top gunship and nickname the Destroyer, serving in both the Cold War and Vietnam War. Edson's last decade of service began by sailing to her new home port, Newport, Rhode Island, and on December 15, 1988, Edson was decommissioned by Commander Gideon Almy III, the 18th and final commanding officer. The Edson served as a museum ship from 1989 until 2004. She then sat in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard before coming right here to Bay City.
Thanks, Brittany. Well, one man's own history is defined by his time here on the USS Edson. His name is Mark Hogan, and he's from Philadelphia. Coincidentally, after the Edson was decommissioned, she found a permanent home in Philadelphia, and Mark Hogan would drive by her every day. But because of tight security, he could never come on board. But when we were in Philadelphia documenting the departure and the preparations for the Edson back here to Bay County, thanks to the U.S. Navy, we were able to get Mark on board for a very emotional, up-close and personal tour. How does she look to you right now?
Well, she looks good, except for she needs some little tender loving care. But then, of course, I'll be able to see more about her when I get on board. And
when was the last time you were on her?
Probably about 12, 13 years ago when she was part of the Intrepid Museum.
Gotta pull that close and throw the bolt. It is an extremely rare opportunity setting foot on the deck of a decommissioned U.S. naval destroyer. The feelings, the emotions, almost beyond words. And for Mark Hogan, who served on the Edson in the mid-70s, actually being on board brings back a lot of memories.
I've seen a lot of miles on her. She helped me grow up, and I'm glad that she's going to be still around for a few more years.
As a civilian who's never been on board a naval vessel, especially one this size, it's hard, if not impossible, for me to imagine what it's like to be a member of the crew. But once on board, it only took but a few minutes to get an honest, lifelike perspective. Everywhere you turn here on the USS Edson, there is evidence of her 30 years of active military service. But here at the very top of this vessel is one that really stands out to me. Says it all.
One time over in Vietnam, she was considered one of the top guns. As a fire support, she kept banging around 24/7. Basically used for gun support. The Marines were always glad to see her come by because they knew that things would be taken care of.
While the memories of the Edson's past will forever be in the minds and hearts of the legions of Navy personnel who served on her, the Edson is about to assume a new role, helping preserve Navy history by becoming a permanent floating interactive museum on the Saginaw River in Bangor Township. Is there actually a belief that she has a spirit?
I would like to think that she does. And if there's no spirit per se, I think the spirit is the crew members and the people that have associated with her at one time or another. Being a crew member, shipyard workers, you name it, anybody had association, I think that would be her spirit.
And what a great experience for all of us, not just Mark Hogan, but Chief Photographer Mike Korn and myself. Right now, though, a special thank you to Mark for his parting gifts to us, some Philadelphia-made tasty cakes. His way of saying thanks to us for helping allow him to get on board the USS Edson. When the USS Edson, a living history, returns, the ship makes its way up the eastern seaboard to the Great Lakes, and questions swirl as to whether it really can survive and thrive as a naval museum. Plus,
you leave high school, you move out into the world, you get on board this vessel, and you grow through there.
Michigan seamen recall life on the ship. Small bunks, small doors, but so much shared. We'll also show you how they stayed in touch through the years when we come back.
doing a John Wayne. That's when the tin can heads towards the beach at full speed, turns to port or starboard, brings all the guns to bear on the beach, and fires a rapid salvo.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm NBC 25's Bill Harris, and we've shown you the extraordinary efforts it has taken to get the USS Edson here to Bay County. But questions remain about the long-term viability of this project. As NBC 25's Josh Marshall now explains, other ship museums have had trouble finding an audience.
Crews are hard at work getting the USS Edson back in ship shape as she plans to open as a naval museum. The USS Edson is undergoing the works, a full restoration before opening as the newest naval museum. But it's going to take a lot more than just a beauty treatment to ensure she'll attract throngs of visitors.
They require a great deal of TLC, and it's constant. And up there, it may be even more so because of the winters that that ship is going to be facing.
The Saginaw Valley Naval Ship Museum hopes to make the Edson the main attraction on Bay City's riverfront. But experts say successful warship museums need to find creative ways to make money.
You must run the museum as a business.
The USS Midway in San Diego, for example, its museum by day, event venue by night. Its downtown location is easy to find and ideal for tourists. Last year, it drew more than 1 million visitors, making it the only naval ship museum to crack that threshold. But the battleship Texas in Houston, on the other hand, is battling signs of age and the rising cost of maintenance. Other struggling naval ship museums are getting by on fewer full-time workers in the weak economy. The waters could be rough for the Edson.
I wish them every bit of luck, and I know that they can make a success of it.
Still, historians say there's an allure about the destroyer that, if marketed in the right way, can be a lasting testament to America's naval history and to all the sailors who served on board. Right now, people can come tour the ship on Saturdays and Sundays, but they hope to have it fully operational by the end of this year.
Thanks, Josh. And while concern continues over the USS Edson as a floating ship museum, some of that concern is focused on the actual condition of the ship. Those who know her well say it's starting to show the years. But NBC 25's Kathy Reynolds joining us right now, saying those who know her well say the USS Edson is really solid.
Well, Bill, I'm below deck waiting for my haircut. Yes, I'm inside the barber shop here on the USS Edson, and this was, in fact, a necessity for the men on board. You see, they were at sea for weeks, even months at a time, and they wanted to look their best when they pulled into the all-girls school in Newport, Rhode Island.
Unpacking the old albums, Roger Heinlein spreads out across the living room.
That's my advancement to second class.
And goes back to when he first joined the Navy.
I kind of look at it as your first love. You always remember your first, like your first girlfriend. Girls, your first boyfriend. It was my first ship.
It was 1986. The ship was the USS Edson, a Forrest Sherman-class destroyer, and Heinlein got to drive.
Everybody on the ship knew me as Radar. You ask anybody on there who's Heinlein, no clue.
He took the Edson into the waves, took her to Newport, Rhode Island, even down to Puerto Rico. More than 200 men on board. The camaraderie and history, he says, are rich.
She's had her bridge blown off in Vietnam. They rebuilt her. She's played a lot of games with submarines.
The Edson was decommissioned in 1988 and stowed in Philadelphia. Heinlein married his sweetheart and went home to Toledo. Decades passed. But just weeks ago, word came the Edson will be moved to Michigan. The video caught Heinlein off guard.
She needs painted, and she's not under her own power.
A tugboat is pulling the Edson through the Great Lakes to the Saginaw Bay. Once there, she'll become a naval museum. Heinlein is already planning a visit.
If they want me to spend the night, I'll paint away.
Ready to tend to the lady who taught him so many life lessons, a ship whose future is as bright as her past.
Roger says some of his fondest memories were spent here on this ship, but I can tell you they weren't in this room. This is the sick bay. When you were ill at sea, you would sit right up on this bed. The doctor would keep any antibiotics that needed to be refrigerated right here at your feet. And over here was where they store the medical supplies. And these drawers come with a little tab to keep things from spilling out at sea. And let's not forget the phone system that was used to call up to the captain to let him know you wouldn't be returning to work. Bill?
Thanks, Kathy. And while it's difficult to tell right now because the ship has undergone a lot of repair and, as we speak right now, restoration, there was a time in the ship's career where she suffered considerable damage. The year was 1967 in Vietnam. NBC 25's Joel Fike just down from us right now in the mess hall to tell us how that year gunfire from shore made the USS Edson look like a piece of Swiss cheese.
The men here inside the Big Ed had no idea, no advance warning of an enemy attack. A lot of them were right here in the mess deck, eating hot dogs, when they heard an explosion. Back in 1967, boom, the USS Edson was hit by the North Vietnamese. According to retired Navy man Wayne Sporman, it was a direct hit to the foremast, causing considerable damage. Retired Navy bossa mate Fred Hunter told us from Florida that indeed the ship was hit, but there were no casualties. One crew member says the incoming damage caused the ship to look like Swiss cheese. If you look closely at these pictures, you can see the damage. One piece of shrapnel was found in the Commodore's pillow, another in the bed springs. The flag was shot down. The bullets were coming in while the ship's crew of 250 were being served their evening meal. It was just a small slice of what happened during the Vietnam War. Hunter says it was a big piece of history as far as Vietnam was concerned. Hunter lived, after all, in Monroe County, Michigan. So the Edson was hit by a number of rounds, but it certainly never sank. The North Vietnamese tried to bring her down, but she stood tall and will live on as a floating museum. When Hunter heard that the Edson would come back, he couldn't be any more proud. He says he wants to take his grandkids to the museum to say, hey, this is what Granddaddy did. Hunter lives in Florida now, but he's heading back to Bay City to see the Edson. He wants to check it out this time with his grandkids, a ship he hasn't seen in 20 years. Bill?
Thanks, Joel. It's tough to imagine going through something like that. And no doubt the sailors who experienced that have formed a lifelong bond. And even though the years have passed, technology is helping them talk to one another and remain in contact. Our NBC 25 interactive editor, Jared Smith, joining us on board right now to tell us how that technology has allowed these proud servicemen to share a lot with us.
Thanks, Bill. And yes, technology makes it much easier for these soldiers to reconnect with each other and for us to reach out to them. And through the magic of the internet, we did our part to help bring the Edson back to life.
We all know the history. If you don't, all you have to do is sign online to our website at mynbcnews.com. Former sailors who served on the USS Edson continue to document the history of the ship with the help of their computers. They're sending emails about their experiences, posting on Facebook, and even tweeting her location as she made her way from Pennsylvania to Michigan. The Edson was known as the Gray Ghost of the Vietnamese coast, with her voyages and battles chronicled by newspapers and in pictures. These images were sent to us by Edgar Wakeman, who served aboard the Edson from 1981 through 1985. Edgar's pictures can also be seen on our website at mynbcnews.com. Fast forward to 2012, and there are several websites containing a plethora of pictures and links, but also ways you can help the Edson's cause. In addition to informing the public about her history, crew members are also relying on social media to keep in touch. Sailors have set up Facebook pages to share their stories and reconnect. There's even a website that lists all the Edson's former crew members and where they are now, a part of the Navy's distinguished history that is able to live on thanks to technology and social media.
For more information or to donate to the Edson, you can visit the official homepage at www.ussedson.org, or you can check out our web coverage at mynbcnews.com. Bill?
Jared, thank you. And one of the men that we were able to find through the website is Charles Struthers, who now lives in Charlevoix. He had a chance to sit down with our Mark Cholette to talk about daily life at sea.
Being on board this ship, being my first, it really sticks in your brain. on almost everything you did every day, because that is where you grew up. You leave high school, you move out into the world, you get on board this vessel, and you grow from there. And while you grow, this ship becomes part of you. The crew becomes part of you.
Like turning a page in time, Charles Struthers can go right back to 1981. Back to that 18-year-old new recruit who saw the USS Edson for the very first time.
You have to remember, I'm a young kid from a small town. So when I rolled up to the pier and I have this ship in front of me, it's like, holy man, look at this thing. It was a massive ship.
A massive ship, but not everything was big enough.
The door stopped about 2 feet above the deck, what they call a knee knocker. And those got me every time, right in the shins. It took me 6 months to pick my feet up and actually go through the door properly instead of having gashes just below my knees.
Scrape knees aside, these hundreds of tons of steel over the next 4 years would carry Struthers from Iceland to the north to the Falklands in the south, and all the way to the western Mediterranean.
A lot of times you walk the decks and you look out over the ocean, seeing a sunset or a sunrise or whatever, and you really feel how far away from home you are.
But like a sunset, that feeling faded for Struthers. This became home, and all of that aging metal became more to him than just a vessel.
The people are the bloodline of the ship, okay? And the ship is the body. So it's all combined into one, but if you haven't gone through that, you don't know what the feeling is like.
A bond made between mates that has lasted for more than 30 years, but an affinity for a ship that will not fade with time.
I look back and think of all the men that have been on that ship and where that ship has been through Vietnam, all the people that have died on the vessel. Yeah, I think about it now. I really do.
While exotic ports of call fill his Navy scrapbooks, his favorite memory of the Edson came close to home, and by complete surprise.
In the 83 cruise that we did, I was bringing the ship into the MacArthur Lock up at Sault Ste. Marie. And as soon as we got the ship in the lock and the gate closed and we're filling up water, bringing the ship up to the superior level, one of the crew members came in the door and said, "Hey, Struthers, you got some people out here want to talk to you." I'm like, "Excuse me? You got some people out here that want to talk to you." He says, "All right." So I walked out to the bridge wing and he pointed up to where the people stand to watch the ships go through. And I looked up and my entire family was standing there.
Struthers' time on the Edson came to an end in her final years of service. But this vessel's legacy can be found not only in his life, but also in the ships that would eventually replace her.
The Edson, she was a workhorse. And I think the design they put in her made the future ships a lot better. So she was just like a stepping stone for the bigger and better ships.
Now saved from the salvage yard, Struthers says a reunion is in store.
It's been a long time. I haven't seen that ship since '85. I mean, I've seen pictures of it. I've seen it on TV. But physically being in front of you again, where I can go on board and see where I worked and lived for 4 years, it's going to be very exciting.
Exciting and emotional for this man and the other men who gave so much for this country on this ship. A vessel that will once again answer a call to duty.
Well, I think it's fantastic, especially coming down to Bay City. After all these years, bringing it back into the Great Lakes to show the flag again, to teach people about the Navy. You couldn't ask for a better ship to be down there.
Still to come from Philadelphia, up the eastern seaboard and through the Great Lakes. After a 3-week journey, the Edson finally pulling into Bay County.
Very proud day, a happy day for Bay City, and we're really glad to see Edson arrive.
Sailors from around the nation descend on this dock to greet her and to get a chance to go on board. We'll take you to the pomp and circumstance when this NBC 25 special, USS Edson, A Living History, returns.
Another sobering, not scary event, playing war games. The waterline on the bulkhead by which I was standing was struck by a dummy torpedo. You could hear the thud, and I realized that if this were real, I would be gone.
Welcome back, everyone. What an incredible sight it was last August when the USS Edson made its way through Saginaw Bay, up the Saginaw River to her present location. Hundreds of people on land and on water witnessing the event. NBC 25's Brittany Shannon joining us right now to tell us about the hundreds of people who came from all over the country to witness the arrival of the Edson's new home.
Well, Bill, after her long voyage from Philadelphia, the USS Edson arrived, making this her temporary home. The crowds on land were applauding. There were tears and smiles as folks remembered special memories with this great ship.
A breathtaking sight drawing hundreds to Essexville.
I wouldn't miss it for the world.
The USS Edson's 3-week journey from Philadelphia to its destination in Bangor Township has been 15 years in the making. Those who coordinated the move describe this day simply.
Nerve-wracking. I didn't get much sleep last night. My brain wouldn't shut off.
For those who served on her, the Edson was their home, her arrival drawing former servicemen from near.
The last 5 days, I've been constantly watching her on the websites, trying to find her. And I came up here yesterday and found out she wasn't here, so I had to drive all the way back to Detroit. And then I just jumped back in the truck this morning and came all the way out here again just to see her pull in.
And far, former crewman Brad Apley flying from Vancouver, Washington.
And this was worth every penny I spent.
All of this bringing back memories spent on board the Edson.
This is a major part of my life for 2 years. This ship was so good when it was placed in commission. It's what convinced me to stay in the Navy. I spent 20 years in the Navy.
Crew members and community members happy that the Edson will make Bangor Township her new home.
I used to dream about this ship, and I didn't want to see her scuttled or sank.
When she finally docked in this position, the folks who served on her had the first opportunity to walk on board. Bill?
Thanks, Brittany. We've already showed you how a colonel had the honor and the privilege of towing the USS Edson here to Bay County from Philadelphia. But upon her arrival, there was a princess to greet her, the Princess Winona, a cruise ship docked here in Bay County. Chief photographer Mike Korn and I had the honor and the fun of being on board the Winona as we escorted the Edson here to her present location. Up close and personal, that's the best way for me to describe how dozens of us witnessed the Edson arrival. From her dock in downtown Bay City, it was just a matter of a few minutes of navigating up the Saginaw River before she came into view. 19 days and 22 hours after her departure from Philadelphia, the USS Edson finally has a new home in Bay County. And for the people who we talked to today, witnessing her arrival here aboard the Winona, there's a sense of pride, a sense of patriotism, and even a sense of awe.
It's history for Bay City.
I'm here because my husband is a Navy man and he loves all ships.
Does it bring back memories?
Oh yeah, I had 23 years with a Navy establishment.
Very proud. My brother Bob from Seapoint, he was in the Navy, and a lot of friends, and this is bringing part of our history to Bay City.
The big step is getting people to volunteer their time in the restoration work, which is just going to begin starting tomorrow.
And the significance of the Edson arrival is best underscored by someone who daily encounters watercraft of every imaginable shape and size, the captain of our host ship, the Princess Winona.
Oh, I was thinking it was an awesome sight.
Ever seen anything like it before?
No, sir, not around here, that's for sure.
Well, once anchored, the Saginaw Valley Ship Museum committee wasted no time in dropping the gangplank, allowing people to come on board to get a first-hand look. And among the first on board were some of her former crew members. NBC 25's Brett Dickey tells us now how one crewman he caught up with has memories as sharp as his wit.
Thank you, Bill. It was a very special day as I got to climb aboard the USS Edson with the former sailor who 40 years ago called her home.
Man of war. That's what they call ships like this. And she earned her name.
It was 1969 when Daryl Carlson last laid foot aboard the USS Edson, and immediately upon his return, the memories started to pour in.
This is the first thing that really struck me about this boat was the hurricane bow.
Carlson left for Vietnam at the age of 18, and manning the ship's guns left quite the impression.
This one was Big Bertha. One lever, full automatic. Boom, boom, boom. I fired these so much in one day that from right here to right here was just glowing red.
For many who sail in times of war, there are good memories.
It's fun to watch when they drop these anchors. They're up here with sledgehammers knocking off these pins, and when that thing takes off, it just, you know.
And the bad.
One time we were at GQ and I leaned out the hatch and the bomb went off. Gunner's mate Waltrip were up there, and Waltrip was just going in the hatch when he got hit, and he caught shrapnel in the shoulder. He got it pretty good.
A breath of fresh air for Carlson this day as his uncertainty of ever seeing the Edson again came to a close.
I used to dream about this ship, and I didn't want to see her scuttled or sank. And I'm grateful that Michigan and Bay City latched onto her.
Daryl Carlson was a sailor immersed in the Vietnam War.
While it was happening, you did what you're supposed to do.
A sailor who treasured those around him.
A lot of memories, a lot of good people were on the ship.
Now, we all remember our first loves, and for Daryl Carlson, this lady is one that he will never forget. As he relived so many memories that morning, one was created for me as well.
Thanks, Brett. It is a place few people have been allowed access to in recent years, and one that's currently off limits to the public. Coming up next, we'll take you on a tour below deck when the USS Edson, A Living History, continues.
What I remember best is the camaraderie with the engineers that I worked with. We worked hard, but also played hard.
It is August, and the USS Edson drops anchor in its new home here in Bay County, and within minutes, people are allowed on board to take a tour. It is the beginning of what someday will become a totally interactive museum and a tourist destination. But on that first day, it was also an opportunity for former crew members to relive their glory days on this ship. Here's NBC 25's Neil Jaffoon.
At the time she was commissioned and built, the USS Edson was state-of-the-art. But check out the bunks that the sailors slept in. This was their home away from home for months at a time.
This was a major part of my life for 2 years.
It was my home for 4.5 years.
Different sailors who served at different times, but all agree, being back aboard the Edson is like coming home.
It's like family. Anybody that served on it is like family.
Brad Abley flew across the country for this homecoming and met up with an old friend.
I didn't think I was going to find anybody here, actually. I've been in contact with Bruce for over a year, and I found out he was coming. It thrilled me.
A lot has changed in the 38 years since these two were crewmates.
We had a couple of chairs in here, and we could control everything from in here. They would call down to us and say, okay, fire so many rounds out of which gun mount, and we'd sit here and pull the trigger, and then they would shoot out there.
But some things have stayed the same.
I would have known him on the street.
A reunion for some sailors, while others reminisced about her place in naval history.
She was faster, she was more seaworthy, she was better living conditions than what we had on the older ships. She was very much state-of-the-art.
Some told war stories.
We were trying to outrun a typhoon. We were taking 47-degree rolls out there, and the ship was only designed to take 45-degree rolls. So we did 147, which we didn't think we were going to come back up on that one.
I can remember standing watch on the bridge in a storm and watching the bow dive in and throw water back over the pilot house where I was standing watch.
But all say it was an experience they'll never forget.
It's different. Believe me, it's different. You got to learn to cope with people, adjust, because you get all walks of life.
The sailors worked here, they ate here, they lived here. The USS Edson was a living, breathing city at sea, and all the sailors we talked to said that their first trip back in August is the first of many to come.
The inside of the USS Edson is currently off limits to tourists while she's outfitted with some new lighting and some safety equipment. But a small group of media was allowed to go into the belly of the ship. We want to show you right now what it's like to go below deck. Here's our Brittany Shannon.
Well, Bill, it's a rare opportunity to tour the insides of a Navy destroyer. We're actually in the engine room right now. The belly of this ship is like a never-ending maze, and according to the experts, if you're not careful, you may find yourself lost. A mighty exterior and a mysterious interior, untouched for years. Explorers not knowing what could be behind each door.
We'll find out, yeah. This is probably underneath the gun mount.
Every class of ship.
This is the gun mount. This is what, see that right there?
Yep, that's where they go.
That puts the gun, that puts the shell up.
Winding through the narrow hallways and small openings of the ship, you can almost imagine the thousands of men who once called the Edson home.
There's a lot of history here, you know, there's a lot of stuff here, a lot of really neat equipment, you know.
A lot of equipment and space necessary when spending months at sea. From where they laid their heads to the galley where they filled their stomachs, sailors had pretty much everything they needed right on board, even a machine shop for fixing things.
They got to be able to make it to replace it. Yeah.
And some meeting rooms served more than one purpose.
The other thing it's used for is the operating room.
And if the lights go out, well, that's not a problem.
They lose power in one part of the ship, they can connect together to the other part and give it power back again.
Although much of this equipment has not been in use since the Edson was decommissioned, men say it's almost as if she's speaking, telling the tales of years ago.
But everyone's a little bit different. But I've been out of reserves here for 10 years, so I bumped my head a couple times.
But no matter how savvy the sailor, he can still get swallowed up in the belly of the ship.
I got myself locked up here yesterday. I had to call John. One of the doors opens one way and it went open back the other way.
Her stories will not remain a secret. The Edson, where history comes to life.
It's a good thing it's here. You know, we worked pretty hard to get it here, and finally it's here. And like I told him, I can't wait to the day when school buses pull up and kids come up and their eyes are, you know, big and wide and want to see everything.
I'm excited. I wish I was a kid again.
Now, when the ship actually becomes an interactive museum, school groups, Boy Scouts, and even adult parties will get to experience life on a Navy destroyer. But for me, right now, it's time to take a rest.
Still ahead on the USS Edson, a living history. Just who is the USS Edson named after? A decorated naval vet, certainly. But there's so much more to Merritt Edson, and you won't believe what state he hails from. And how much money will it take to get the USS Edson fully operational? We'll tell you, and how you can get involved when the USS Edson, a living history, continues.
At the time, we served as a training ship for reservists and as an engineering ship for officer candidates from the Naval War College based at Newport, Rhode Island. Not a bad place to be based out of when you're a young person.
Welcome back, everyone. A glorious ship and a grateful crew. The USS Edson, full of fond memories and dedicated service. And it's only fitting because she bears the name of someone with a very impressive biography. NBC 25's Liz McFarland joining us right now to tell us about Merritt Austin Edson.
Hey Bill, I'm actually on the bridge right now on the USS Edson in the actual captain's chair. Isn't that pretty cool? Now there's 105 Navy ships in total that have been named after Marines. This is one of them, and his name, Major General Merritt Austin Edson. Merritt Austin Edson hailed from Vermont, born in 1897. He enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserve at the start of World War I and went on to serve in the jungles of Nicaragua, earning the Navy Cross for extraordinary heroism. Major General Edson later earned a Medal of Honor and many other distinguished awards. He retired in 1947, then became the first Commissioner of Public Safety for the state of Vermont and served as Executive Director of the National Rifle Association. Merritt Austin Edson was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. And once the boat, the USS Edson, is in its permanent location, they're going to actually have the Medal of Honor he was awarded be displayed here on the boat for all to see.
Fascinating man. Thanks, Liz. Well, as you can see, considerable work has been done so far, but there's a lot more work to be done. Work that's going to take time and money. The Saginaw Valley Ship Museum says now they need your help.
Every day, dozens of volunteers come down to the USS Edson and pick up a paintbrush in order to lend a helping hand. Not only do they want to refurbish the ship, but they also want to make sure that her colors are historically accurate. Crews are hard at work, scraping away years of rust and neglect in order to give the USS Edson a much-deserved facelift.
We just got swept up into it. I mean, you just get into it and you kind of start to own little portions of it.
Charlene Simmons and her husband Milt, a retired sailor, have been volunteering their time since the Edson arrived in Bay County.
We were there the first day and it looked pretty sad.
It's kind of awesome. I mean, you have to agree, right?
Armed with brushes and paint, the Simmons and other volunteers inch their way down the ship.
It is big, and you just have to take your time and do a little bit at a time.
Section by section, the ship is coming back to life, from the gray deck to the guns and colorful accents.
We want it to look as natural as can be, so that people can see it as it was when it was in active duty.
So every day they come back, don their gloves, and push through the pain.
I'm not as young as I once was, and we get pretty tired and we got achy body parts.
I take on a lot for myself here now because I just would like to see it come back looking good.
A true labor of love. Once they're done with the deck, then it's time to tackle the monumental task of refinishing the sides, all the cabins and workrooms below, and bring this destroyer back to life.
You hear, their dreams and for the ship. I mean, it just, you want to do what you can to help them achieve those dreams because they worked for so many years to get it here.
Restoring the USS Edson to her original glory is not cheap. Just to give you an example, this can of paint costs $35. It takes 14 cans of paint just to paint the back portion of the deck alone. So they need your help volunteering, but they also need donations in order to keep this project afloat. In order to do that, you can log on to our website at mynbcnews.com.
From tours of duty in Vietnam to naval training in Newport, Rhode Island, the USS Edson has been all over the world in service to her country. But it is her second chapter in life, a new lease on life, when she becomes an interactive museum here in Bay County that may be her most significant chapter, preserving history, her history, for generations to come. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Thank you to all in the armed services and the veterans for their service to our communities, and in particular, a salute to all who served on the USS Edson. I'm Bill Harris, NBC 25 News.
Drove up from Washington at 3 o'clock this morning just to be here for this. See her go. The ship really has a lot of spirit to it, and it's the people that serve on board her. I'm looking forward to seeing my old berthing unit, and and it's all memories. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. This was an outstanding crew that benefit from the spirit of this ship.
I can't imagine how many people are going to be standing here on that pier when that ship gets here.